Welcome. Hi, I'm April Altman-Becker, and I'm the Dean of Educational and Cultural Resources here at Sul Ross State University. I want to welcome you all to, what is this, our fourth or fifth lecture in the series, the Sul Ross Spotlight. The Spotlight is an online monthly lecture series. It's open to the public, open to everyone at Sul Ross, that will highlight the expertise and the research of us here at Sul Ross. So the Sul Ross Spotlight is sponsored by the PAC First, the Professional Development Initiative from the Educational and Cultural Resources Division. The mission of our division is to connect our resources with our campus and our community and to make the most of our special offerings to enhance the quality of life on campus and throughout our communities. Today, we are spotlighting Sul Ross's relationship with our Ellucian grant services. And Ellucian partners with institutions of higher education to enhance grants capacity and to advance student and organizational successes. Our grant specialists are specifically focused on the needs of higher education, and they're experienced in serving institutions of all sizes and types. Their services encompass the full grants life cycle, and they're tailored to build and supplement each institution's grant capacity. We're really lucky today to be joined by four, I think, of the Ellucian team, and I want to briefly introduce them to you. First, we've got Sarah Schroeder, and Sarah is a principal grant specialist. Sarah brings an exceptional portfolio of experience in planning, writing, and managing grants, aligning them to institutional priorities, projecting institutional and community needs that can be met through grant funding, and executing grant project plans. Sarah's raised more than $70 million in her career, with more than $60 million of that going to institutions of higher education. We also have Dr. Barb Dodge, and Barb is a senior grant specialist. Barb's been active in higher education for more than 20 years, teaching and building curriculum at the certificate, associate, bachelor, and master degree levels. She eventually advancing through administration. Barb has written successful foundation, state, and federal grants for 20 years. We also have Brett Siebert, and Brett, you can correct me if it's not Siebert, it might be Seibert. Let us know.
No, you got it. It's Siebert. Yeah,
oh, Siebert. Okay, great. Brett, most of y'all here at Sul Ross have met Brett. Brett is our senior grant specialist. Brett's got more than 11 years of experience in higher ed, and he's dedicated to supporting institutions to increase access and improve outcomes. Since 2012, Brett's been working to help secure external funds and implement successful sponsored projects. As senior grant specialist with Ellucian, Brett employs this experience to assist institutions plan projects, develop strategies, and successfully navigate all stages of the grant life cycle. We've also got Julie Barnes. Julie is a grant specialist. Julie joined Ellucian in November of 2021. She previously served as the Director of Grant Programs for Cornell College in Mount Vernon, Iowa. Her previous awards have funded STEM recruitment and retention, historic preservation and restoration, curriculum innovation, service learning, fine arts, and humanity initiatives. And finally, Deb Porter is not able to be with us today, but a lot of us here at Sul Ross remember Deb from working over the last few years with her. Deb began in 1981 as she worked to bring services to a rural and economically disadvantaged region of Texas. From that time, her skills as a grant writer and project manager have benefited colleges, universities, K-12, school systems, and communities. She's authored books that are used as textbooks now and developed a communities in school project for community colleges. Deb, while retired really from our Sul Ross team, I think she continues to empower others to be successful with grants through professional development, webinars, and presentations at national conferences. So today's talk is entitled Sul Ross State University and Ellucian Grant Services, Partnership and Potential. Today, our Ellucian team will discuss how the partnership with Sul Ross has helped build the capacity and secure funding to implement institutional strategies, the impact of grant and grant services and higher ed across the country, and how the current and future funding trends may present additional opportunities for Sul Ross faculty and staff. So before we really jump in, just a little bit of housekeeping. If you are having issues, we have staff members standing by for tech assistance on the Microsoft Teams chat. As you can tell, your mics and your cameras are muted today, and that's really just so that we can see and hear the presentation without distraction. So today's lecture is going to be about 40 minutes, and there'll be time at the end for questions. So hold your questions. You can enter these questions through the chat. You don't have to hold your questions. Enter your questions through the chat as you have them, and I'll hold them until the very end, and I'll read them and let the team answer. So finally, without further delay, hello, Ellucian team. Thanks so much for being our SRS Spotlight this month. We've all been waiting to hear from you, so the floor is yours.
All right. Well, thank you, April, for that introduction, and thank you sincerely for the opportunity to be part of this Spotlight Sol Ross series. I think we've all had a chance to kind of look back at some of the past presentations, and I think it's just a really cool initiative for departments to kind of share information about what's going on at Sol Ross and how we can all kind of work together to improve outcomes. And welcome everyone here to, as April mentioned, what we're calling Partnership and Potential, where we really want to highlight some of the ways that Sol Ross has worked in collaboration with us at Ellucian Grant Services over the last few years to have what we hope is a positive impact on the institution, on its students, and on its communities. And then we also want to discuss some of the great potential that's out there in terms of grants and some other strategic initiatives where we can be of continued service going forward. So as April mentioned, I'm Brett Siebert. I think hopefully most of you know me already, or at least are aware of me. I've been working in various roles in higher education since about 2009. But one of the best things about working for Ellucian, and one of the ways that I think we can really benefit Sol Ross, is that I'm not doing this alone. I'm part of this larger Ellucian Grant Services team, which collectively now has well over 200 years of experience working in all aspects of grants. And, as April mentioned, and much to my delight, I've been able to bring some colleagues along with me today from our team to let you get to know some of these, incredibly smart and talented people that I get to work with every day. And also, hopefully, to give them the chance to get to know some of you a little better. One of my goals in kind of putting this presentation together, as I discussed initially with Dr. Funisaki and then with Dean Altman-Becker, and then one of our team's goals, I think, going forward in the coming months, is to really get more of our EGS team increasingly involved with Sol Ross so we can really draw on and benefit from our collective experience and all the different specific expertise of our entire team. And I think everyone on our team is, to a certain extent, kind of a Jack or a Jane of all trades, but we each have kind of specific areas where we're, more comfortable or have a little bit more experience. So again, you know me, and April did a good job of introducing us, but just again, I have with me Principal Grant Specialist Sarah Schroeder, Senior Grant Specialist Barb Dodge, Grant Specialist Julie Barnes, and then Dr. Deborah Porter, who, as April mentioned, will not be able to join us today. She's got some family health issues she's dealing with, but I know she really wishes she could be here today and played kind of an integral part in helping us plan this presentation and, kind of introduce me to everyone at Sol Ross as, our previous lead grants consultant for Sol Ross. So that's just my little introduction, and I'll be kind of brief at the beginning and let my teammates speak. But I did want to touch just a bit on the roles between, Ellucian Grant Services and Sol Ross and this partnership and how that works. So in this slide, we have a graphic that kind of outlines some of these responsibilities a little bit. So we have the subject matter experts and grant planners. This is really the faculty and staff who eventually become our principal investigators or project directors. So these are the folks who really have the know-how and the drive to kind of implement these projects on the ground and to perform the research that we're hopefully funding with grants. Then the bottom section of the circle, we have internally our Office of Research and Sponsored Programs, who they work to help us interact with kind of institutional leadership, with the institution as a whole, and then provide some guidance for the overall direction and strategy of our grants operation. And then the Ellucian Grant Services team hopefully kind of fits right in there, really in a support and capacity building role, helping to develop and improve policies, write applications, of course, and then also helping with management and compliance post-award. And here, I never want to talk about Ellucian Grant Services without including, this graphic or something similar that really touches again on that full cycle of services that Ellucian Grant Services provides. So it's not just, grant writing. A lot of times I'll introduce myself kind of as a grant writer, or someone will introduce me as a grant writer, but really what we do is kind of more all-encompassing than that. So it includes the pre-award stuff, so assessing capacity, are we able to handle this kind of project? Will we be able to make some positive impact with this? Identifying institutional priorities, which, I've had the chance to meet with several of you kind of on site visits, talking about what are our funding needs and where do we really want to go. And then, of course, finding the opportunities to apply for. And then it does also include writing those proposals, getting those projects up and running. And then I also want to really stress these kind of pink circles there, the kind of post-award compliance and management side, which Sarah will touch a little bit more on later. So that's really what we do. And now I also want to talk briefly about some of the outcomes and progress we've seen thus far with this partnership. So outcomes to date, our line graph there on the left side, this shows only those grants that were primarily developed or written by Ellucian Grant Services, or on which Ellucian Grant Services was kind of a critical part of the application process. So it starts at 0, kind of when we first came on board and started the engagement, and then steadily has climbed over the years to where we are now, which is just a little under 16.5 million. But what I'm really proud of is this graphic on the right side, and this comes back to, again, the capacity building and trying to affect the grant seeking culture at the institution. So this is the number of unique principal investigators and project directors who have submitted proposals by fiscal year. So this is an indicator of, our grant interest. And, we know that working on these proposals and taking on the committing to take on one of these grant funded projects, taking ownership of the whole process, like developing and submitting a grant, is incredibly time consuming, especially when you've got, a full teaching load, or in a lot of cases, 1 or 2 or 3 overload courses. So taking this on really does, I think, speak to the kind of passion and dedication of faculty and staff there who, want to see these positive impacts and want to go after these grants to bring in some money so that we can, help our students succeed and help the institution be all that we know it can. And I think this, again, is kind of a great indicator of our kind of grant seeking health, and it's encouraging that it continues to grow. So far in fiscal year 22, we're at, I think, 11 unique PIs and PDs with a little less than 6 months to go. So we should hopefully be right on track. We've got several in the hopper over the next couple months, so we should get to meet or exceed what we did in fiscal 21. But that's enough from me for a while. I'm now going to turn it over to my colleague, Sarah Schroeder.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having us. I apologize in advance. I'm getting over a cold, so I will try not to cough at you during my part. A little bit more about me. I've been in higher education for 11 years now, 3 of them with Ellucian. I have undergraduate degrees in political science and social work, and I have master's degrees in public administration and public policy. Why I actually did not start in higher ed. I started my career in homeless services, and through a couple different organizations in a couple of big cities, the constant through line that I heard was this lack of access to resources and education specifically, and how that's the beginning of so many of the social ills that we spend so many time and resources trying to fix, and that transformed what I wanted to do with my life. So I joined a community college about 11 years ago, and then again, grant funding. It is one of the most interesting and exciting opportunities for colleges to try and to find new ways to reach new students. And with my skill set and my past with fundraising paired with the missions of the community college that I was at, it was just a perfect marriage. And I am so excited to be able to bring some of this experience and some of the work that I've done to you at SRSU. Excuse me. The first thing I want to talk about is NSF. The National Science Foundation is a personal favorite of mine, and it's because they want you to try big. They want you to have, to think big, try big, even sometimes fail big. They're not as interested in making sure that your outcomes come out exactly as you thought they would. They want to make sure you do all the actions you promised, but what did you learn from that? I love NSF because they want you to do that critical piece of science, which is spending just as much time figuring out what isn't right as what is right. And when we talk about higher ed, there is so many opportunities for us to learn and grow through trying and doing. So the overview of their mission and purpose, they promote progress. They want to fund those ideas that move us forward, that push the needle. Again, they're high risk and high reward. They're willing to see an idea and see that there's a basis, there's a scientific basis for why you think what you did, and you want to expand that body of knowledge. You want to try something innovative. You want to try something spectacular and see what happens, and then make those results part of a bigger picture. That transforms education. It transforms the way science is taught. As you know, through your NOIS grant, we are teaching people to teach others, and NSF wants to be part of it. Excuse me. Again, they find the people and the projects and the ideas that are moving us forward as a nation, and they want to give money to support it. They have 3 guiding priorities. The first one is broadening participation and diversity. I know we hear about this a lot in a lot of different ways, but I want to reiterate that diversity means diverse participation. So looking at, where you are, looking at how your campuses are spread out along an area with such a sparse population and the unique needs of the Chihuahuan Desert, you have a diversity of potential STEM graduates just by nature of where you're located. We don't have to limit our thinking of what that broadening participation looks like. It's going to be different in a place like Sul Ross than it is in, Camden County, New Jersey, or in California. And looking at where your population is, you can still broaden that participation. The second one is intellectual merit. They want to advance knowledge. Sometimes the knowledge you're advancing is, yes, I did everything I said I was going to do, and it didn't work, but they want to know that. So the next group of people interested in that idea, they'll have your background, they'll have what you've done, and they can build on that. They can learn from it. And then the third piece is the broader impact. They want the potential to benefit society, contribute to the world, desired societal outcomes. We're trying to move the needle, and they have the resources and the experience to jump in. They can go all in on these projects that maybe would be too outside of the scope of your institution to fund, but they're willing to put their dollars there, and the idea that they can create impacts that then ripple across the country. So I want to talk about 3 specific ones that I think are fantastic opportunities for Sul Ross. And I want to start with my favorite one just because it's the easiest one to talk about. I love improving undergraduate education in STEM. They are asking you to be creative, to try something really cool. They want you to use a body knowledge or test a body of knowledge, or sometimes even transform a body of knowledge so that you can create a totally different picture of what works in education. It is so exciting to me when somebody, maybe a faculty member in one class, decided to try something new with just a group of 5 students, and they're incredibly successful. And then they try it in a classroom and they realize, wow, this idea actually is working. Where are the funds and the resources to scale that up to the size of your institution? That's where this kind of thing can come in. We can look at how do you engage, master's degree students with kindergartners? How do you see that pipeline of success? There are so many creative ways to change how undergraduates learn. And it can start as young. I'm actually working on an IUs right now that starts with this middle school and uses undergraduate students to teach there. It's just such a fun and exciting way to reimagine what's possible in undergraduate education and to have some support to bring it to fruition. And because of our time limit, I'm giving you a little taste of my favorites, but we are available at any time to talk about them more. Advanced technology education. Excuse me. This one, you do have to have a community college as your lead, but it is an opportunity to build on a body of knowledge for technology education delivery. And this is really exciting, again, because of where you are. Look at the different technology-based jobs that have changed in the last 10 years, the last 20 years. Irrigation systems, ranching systems, how farming is done, your transport even because of changes in climate. All of those changes require changes in how workers address them. But who's training them on new systems? Who's looking at, oh, there's this new irrigation system that will maintain the water supply on our ranches, but nobody knows how to use it. So that's why I love ATE, because it's figuring out those best practices that are being used in industry, designing ways to pull them out, create a program around it, and then offer it at the community college level. There are so many creative ways to get in front of changes in industry to prepare the next generation of workers before those jobs even really exist. People know they need someone to do it. They might even be doing it piecemeal, but you can be the person who says, you know what, let's codify this. Let's find the best possible way to teach this, and then let's figure out a way to get it out to as many people as possible. The opportunities within ATE to creatively address real needs in your community, it's an overwhelming opportunity, and it's something that, especially in your region right now, given the way that the changes in climate there have impacted your industries, they could have big potential. And the last one I wanted to talk about, you are familiar with scholarships because of your NOISE program and training teachers. We all know that the easiest way to engage more students is to pay for their education. But we also all know, if we've been in education more than a day, that that's not enough. The story of education is not, oh, well, I have a scholarship, so suddenly I am fully successful. You're building an ecosystem of support and interventions, and you're figuring out what parts of your wraparound services make the most sense. And also figuring out a system for identifying those potential STEM students that have the most potential, but are least likely to get to your doors. So this kind of a grant project, it funds the scholarships, but it also creates an opportunity for you to create a microcosm of support for these students that will increase their ability to successfully complete their STEM education. And that's it for NSF, but I did want to say there are a lot of other opportunities, and we can help you find the right one. If you have an idea that falls somewhere within the things that I'm talking about today and you want to talk about potential, Brett is a fantastic resource who can help find the exact right opportunity for you. And with that, I'm going to pass on to my colleague. Maybe. There we go.
Okay, thank you very much, Sarah. It's hard to follow up that passion that came through resoundingly in your voice. I am equally happy to be here today and appreciate the opportunity to present opportunities that may prompt discussion over the coming year. The first of several organizations that I want to talk about and present is the Health Resource Services Administration. But first, I want to talk a little bit about my background to let you know some of the features behind people who are supporting Brett as he leads your program. I am a registered nurse. I have 10 years of experience in practice in ICU and operating room and a couple of other areas. I do carry a license, which I find very valuable when working with health-related grant opportunities and proposals. I have a doctorate in industrial and organizational psychology. I have been a full-time faculty member. I have been in dean and executive dean roles, vice president of instruction. I've done special projects, initiatives for advancement in a 4- and 6-year institution, and I have about 25 years of experience, well over 20 years of experience in business and healthcare program adjunct faculty assignments at our local Lakeland University, which is very similar in size and mission to Sul Ross. The strengths that I have, in addition to general administrative and in-class teaching and so forth, the strengths that I think and the passions that I've had over the years include curriculum development, especially the ability to convert workplace projects to college credit, using standards established by the Council for Adult and Experiential Learning and the Council for Accelerated Programs. Cooperative learning or in-class active or collaborative learning methods, creating services and institutionalizing a culture of creating services for neurodiverse students, Very, very extensive experience with community collaborations, particularly bringing community college and four-year institutions together for non-competitive results. And of course, grants. So we'll go now to the Health Resources and Services Administration, and some of the opportunities that they offer. Their health workforce opportunities include behavioral or mental health, geriatrics, health careers in general, and nursing. Public health may be an option, but the ones that are specific to Sul Ross are the four that I just mentioned. So I've selected a couple to highlight. For behavioral or mental health, the focus here is on increasing access to behavioral health care services. Like Sarah had said, there's an awful lot of focus on reaching underrepresented, underserved populations and taking care of DEI initiatives successfully. And this carries through, of course, with all HRSA opportunities. There's an opportunity called Centers of Excellence, and this the focus here is on institutionalizing a commitment to the underrepresented minorities, students and faculty both. It is not just the education of the students, it is the professional development of the faculty, ensuring a diverse student body who is successful and a diverse faculty team. The next one is geriatric workforce enhancement. The focus here is to improve healthcare for older adults and maximizing patient and family engagement. And this is probably an option that is good for Sul Ross to partner with local healthcare agencies. There's another in geriatrics. The Academic Career Award Program supports the development of junior faculty in geriatrics, so professional development to enhance a geriatric program or course. Scholarships for disadvantaged students promote diversity among the health professions, which we know improves outcomes for a diverse population as they access healthcare. Nursing workforce diversity supports the projects that increase nursing education opportunity for all who are from disadvantaged backgrounds, including underrepresented racial and ethnic minorities and low income. And finally, the Nurse Education Practice Quality and Retention Program supports the academic, service, and continuing education needs. This project enhances nursing education, which ultimately will improve the quality of patient care, increase nursing retention, and strengthen the nursing workforce. So another in particular that I wanted to spotlight is called the Rural Public Health Workforce Training Network Program. Again, this is a complex opportunity that really does involve Sul Ross's partnership with local healthcare agencies. The goals are to establish a strong network of local healthcare, social service, getting your counseling program involved, and educational institutions that serve rural communities. Another goal is to achieve equity in health systems, to develop innovative workforce approaches following the impacts of COVID, and to design or expand on current culturally and linguistically appropriate workforce trainings. So that is an opportunity that I thought might be of particular interest to Sul Ross. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, also called SAMHSA, also has an interesting opportunity among others. But the one that I chose to spotlight here is called the Mental Health Awareness and Training Grant. This comes out usually once a year. The purpose here is to train individuals, and we would include here actually school staff, but it's to bring together maybe consortiums of people who are first responders, who are supporters of victims, of crisis victims, and those who experience long-term mental or behavioral health disorders. The purpose, the overarching purpose, is to get additional training and improve the referral services for these for the clients. Other agencies to monitor would be the United States Department of Health and Human Services, the National Science Foundation, because there are opportunities for healthcare that come through STEM on occasion. Any Texas state capacity expansion or program outcomes improvement opportunities, partnerships with foundations, local healthcare agencies, and then there's the local area health education centers, AHECs, that usually have some opportunities for partnerships to improve the local healthcare workforce or access to healthcare education for diverse communities. And we'll pass this over to Julie.
Thank you, Barb. As mentioned in the introduction, I'm one of the newer members of the Ellucian Grant Services team. I joined our team in November of last year. Prior to that, I have 35 years experience working in higher education in a number of settings. I've worked at mid-sized universities, I've worked at large universities, and more recently, I worked at a small, religiously affiliated private liberal arts college in central Iowa. I have a depth of knowledge related to behavioral health and mental health initiatives. In my tenure working in higher ed, I have been a psychotherapist at a university counseling center. I have directed substance abuse prevention, intervention, and treatment programs in a collegiate environment. I have been a certified victim advocate for sexual assault and domestic violence, and worked in that capacity for a university for about 18 years. And I also have had the privilege of serving as a peer reviewer for about 15 years for the U.S. Department of Education for 6 different grant competitions. One of the things I like to really do for my colleagues is to put on my peer reviewer hat, and when a proposal is getting near end stage and is really taking shape, I like to review it as though I was on that panel, using the same rubric and scoring system that will actually be used to assess the project's merit and hopefully give some feedback that can help identify strengths and speak to concerns that peer reviewers might have had before they had the opportunity to have them. The last college I served was a beautiful historic campus, and every building but 2 were on the National Register of Historic Places. So I had the opportunity to write and win a lot of grant awards for historic preservation, historic conservation, historic restoration, and also humanities grants that funded initiatives to do interpretations of historic and cultural resources. I'm going to speak with you today about grant opportunities available through the National Endowment for the Humanities and the National Endowment for the Arts. You're likely aware that these are federal independent organizations that have a whole suite of grant offerings. Before really diving into that, I want to acknowledge, as I'm sure many or all of you are aware, that the humanities really have been under threat. I don't think that's too strong a term in the recent past. Student enrollments in the humanities have been dwindling. Enrollment in individual courses, also the number of students who are majoring and minoring in those disciplines. The earning potential for students who go into technical and STEM disciplines are really touted to prospective students and to current students. And there's been this questioning of the relevance of humanities, which I find a bit offensive because I'm really passionate about the humanities. But faculty and administrators, I think, at campuses across the United States have really been tasked with curricular design to better communicate the relevance of the humanities. And fortunately, a lot of the organizations that fund these types of initiatives are also really aware, and they're changing the grant competitions to speak directly to these challenges. So one of those grant opportunities that's relatively new is called the Humanities Connections Grant. So with this grant opportunity through the NEH, at least one faculty from the humanities must partner with one faculty member from a non-humanities discipline, and jointly, and there can be more than 2 disciplines as well, but jointly they have to modify the curriculum for a pre-service or a professional program. And the task at hand is to substantively integrate the subject matter and the perspectives and the unique pedagogical approaches of each of those disciplines to come up with an improved product and an improved curriculum. This competition does require that experiential learning be an intrinsic and a very salient part of the redesigned curriculum. The applications for this competition will be made available on July 1st with a deadline of September 1st. And the projects would actually have implementation dates that beginning as early as June 1st of 2023 and expanding as far into the future as September 1st of 2023. There are 2 tracks to this competition, a planning grant, which could award up to $35,000, and an implementation grant, which could award up to $150,000. I did have the privilege of working with a faculty member at my previous institution who won both a planning grant and an implementation grant. I thought I'd tell you just a little bit about that to put some meat on the competition, help you visualize how this might support your projects. She was an art historian who was able to get access to a tomb in Mexico that took all kinds of permits and application processes, and she was allowed to make drawings and photographs of the tomb artifacts. She partnered with a computer science faculty member at our institution and with a number of undergraduates in the computer science department. There are a lot of grant competitions that are encouraging humanities projects to evolve beyond just a traditional book or a textbook format into digital formats. So they were taking this collaboration and making a video game so that students could experience and members of the public could enter a simulated tomb environment in a 3-dimensional environment, walk through the tomb as though they were there in person, pick up the artifacts with the mouse, rotate them, see them in a 3-dimensional format. So the planning grant they used to explore all the computer platforms that were available to take these 2-dimensional images to a 3D format, and then the implementation grant, they actually developed the computer program. The next competition I wanted to spotlight is called the Fellowship Open Book Program. I think it's another example of a competition that's being responsive to some of the challenges experienced by the humanities. So for this competition, humanities books are made widely available to teachers, to students, to scholars by publishing them in a very low-cost ebook format. And then folks who get funding from this competition use what's called a Creative Commons license. And that book product can then be downloaded and redistributed through the internet at no charge to the end users. I think the fellowships are some of NEH's most well-known grant competitions, so perhaps these aren't new to you. One of the newer ones is called Advanced Social Sciences Research on Japan, individual fellowships. They want to promote Japan studies in the United States to encourage scholarly exchange between the 2 countries and to support the next generation of Japan scholars in the United States. The due date is not that far in the future. For the current calendar year, it's April 27th. The summer stipends are a very well-known program offered by NEH. They provide 2 months of dedicated support so that faculty members can, I think Brett talked about all of the competing demands, that you can take some time away from all of those other demands, whether those be advising, teaching, committee service, and focus your efforts on an archaeological report, an article, a book, a digital resource. That competition deadline for 2022 is September 21st. There is also a fellowship competition called the Public Scholar. Those awards encourage writing a nonfiction book that is specifically written for the audience of the general public. And the deadline for this calendar year is December 14th. The National Endowment for the Arts has a series of grant offerings, some of which are available to organizations rather than individuals. One of those is called Challenge America. They provide up to $10,000 for a project that is designed specifically to extend the reach of the arts to underserved populations. I do think it's important to note that this competition has a cash match obligation. So the organization must contribute at least $10,000, which could be achieved through a combination of cash and in-kind contributions. They also have a competition called Art Projects Grants, which support artistically excellent projects that celebrate creativity and cultural heritage. The next deadline for that competition is July 7th. The Our Town competition, is a creative placemaking grant that supports projects that integrate arts and culture and design and serve the dual function of strengthening the community in which that project is launched. They have yet to announce the deadline for the 2022 calendar year, so please visit the website often to stay updated about that opportunity. Some of the individual grants offered by the National Endowment for the Arts are the Translation Project, which is a fellowship grant that is available to translators who take materials such as prose and poetry or dramatic works and translate them from a non-English language to English. They also offer a competition for creative writers. It also takes the form of a fellowship, and that is a $25,000 grant award in prose and poetry that, again, allows those scholars to take time away from all those other competing demands, hole up somewhere hopefully really lovely, scenic, drenched in nature, and just take some dedicated time to work on that product.
Okay, so I'm gonna take the opportunity to walk through some.
I may need to reload that presentation. Looks like it went away. Hang on just one second. Let me do that.
So we had a question, and maybe we could take one of the questions. Oh, I'm sorry. There we go. She's bringing it up. Okay.
That's okay. If you want to take a question, I know Brett's got to scroll over probably to the right
I
slide.
can do that. I can do that while we get to the current slide, and thank you for helping us with that, April.
Sure.
Yes, and I intended actually to mention that that competition, the open book competition, is just one example of a number of competitions that are encouraging faculty to develop what are called OER, open educational resources. That there is a lot of attention, appropriately so, on college affordability. And so there's more and more funds being invested to incentivize faculty to develop open educational resources and then use them in their courses so that students don't have to buy what is often a very expensive textbook. So there are open educational resource grant competitions across a lot of agencies, not just the NEA, not just the NEH. And some of the other places that are offering opportunities like that are linked to library and museums. So thanks for that question.
Yeah, thanks for bringing the presentation back, April. I think I got a little trigger happy and clicked stop presenting after I took control of the slides, so it's my fault, but sorry for the delay. For the U.S. Department of Agriculture, they provide grant funding through 18 sub-agencies, which include arms like the Natural Resources Conservation Service, Farm Service Agency, the Rural Utilities Service, among others. In a past role, I worked directly with the College of Agriculture at an 1890 land grant institution, so I got to be pretty familiar with some of their different funding streams offered through USDA. And I know, speaking of Dr. Porter, who's not with us today, one of the first, if not the first grant that she worked on with our SRSU engagement was the USDA, the HSI education grant that was successfully funded. And she did some legwork there trying to track down the hot walker for the horses that's out at Turner Range now. So I've got a little bit of a history with USDA stuff here. The first opportunity I wanted to share is through rural development. So this is distance learning and telemedicine program. So this helps rural communities leverage technology to broaden their reach to overcome the effects of remoteness and low population density. So a really good fit, I think, for a lot of what we're trying to do to send our classes and research and some of these things out to some of these extremely rural, isolated communities that are part of the Sul Ross service area. I know we've looked at this program several times in the past and something that's explored even prior to Ellucian's engagement. But part of what complicates this proposal is that Part of the application includes what they call a rurality matrix, where, believe it or not, Sul Ross, none of our 4 campuses score very well on that rurality matrix. But as I mentioned, a lot of the communities within the service area do score very well. So this would revolve around something about establishing Sul Ross as a hub and then establishing end user sites in some of these more isolated areas that are a little farther out. What the funds would be used for is audio, video, interactive equipment, broadband support, networking hubs. We're still monitoring the announcement of the deadline for this year, but it's pretty reliably available over the summer. I think last year was early June. So next, we've got a couple different opportunities through the National Institute of Food and Agriculture. So the first is this Agriculture and Food Research Initiatives Foundation and Applied Science Program. So this provides funding across the 7 program areas listed here. But within this program, there are several different grant types, one of which that I've called some attention to here is the Strengthening Grants Program. And this limits eligibility to only small and mid-sized institutions, minority serving institutions, or institutions that have relatively limited success seeking federal funds for science and engineering research. So this increases our chances of successful application under AFRI by excluding some of the, the ag giant type institutions that tend to be the go-tos for a lot of the programs offered through AFRI. So due dates for this program are scattered through late summer to fall, running from August to October, depending on program area. Next up is these capacity building grants for non-land grant colleges of agriculture. Similarly here, this is limited eligibility, only applicable to non-land grant institutions with a certified college of agriculture. So these are intended to increase an institution's capabilities in terms of, what kind of research are we capable of conducting? What kind of quality education are we capable of providing? And then how can we get that information out to the communities through extension and outreach activities? These grants typically fund equipment and supply purchases, professional development, innovative outreach that attract additional students into the food, agriculture, natural resources, and human sciences. We're still waiting for 2023 deadlines. I'm going to pass it back to Sarah now for some compliance and management talk.
Hi again. So I am the go-to expert on our team for compliance and grant management. We all are well versed in how to make sure that your organization is successful, but I hold the distinction of genuinely liking all of the rules and order that that you have to go through for the government. So I wanted to go through 2 different services that we offer. And now that you have so many fantastic ideas for grants, I want to make sure you're aware of what we can do to make sure that they're successfully kicked off. So first, we're looking at the uniform guidance support. So in 2017, all the different OMB circulars that kind of gave the guidance for each organization within the federal government joined together, and they wrote out what's called a super circular. So now there's one uniform guidance that guides all federal funding. It is a beast. It is every rule you could possibly ever need to know. And one thing that we offer for our institutions is uniform guidance support. So this is not grant specific, it's institution specific, but it's making sure that if any of your grants are ever audited, you have all the correct policies and procedures in place that support grant work. So part of this looks like we do an institutional process review. So what's your process for use of funds? What is your process for getting a grant approved internally before it's submitted, for who's allowed to be the AOR on your grants, things like that. So we look at all of your processes, we look at all of your board passed policies, and then your grants records management. And through that, we can go through all the requirements from the federal government for you, make suggestions on which ones might need to be tidied up or added to your system, and prepare you for an audit. It is a long process, but it is one that once you do it once, it's an annual review. And that process means that we have everything ready to go. You've got your systems online ready to show all the things that an auditor could possibly want. And I'm not talking about your financial audit, I'm talking about an auditor for a grant. And then you'll be organized and ready for any of those things to happen. The uniform guidance is, like I said, it is a tool, but it is written in government legalese, and it is long, and it is changing once a year. Usually it's updated. So we like to make sure our partners know that we have that expertise, and we've got you. We can help you wade through that and make it easier for your institution to be ready for success. And then the second piece is on grant performance. And this one is a favorite of mine. I love to help new project managers kick off their grants in a way that is guaranteed to be successful. We can help build tools for you to review your outcome projections, how your spending is going, how to phrase things for your program officer. And what that does is, if you fill out these forms about different things every quarter, we can provide a projection analysis to you that lets you know, oh, we think you're going to meet this outcome early. We think you're going to beat it by 20%. Way to go. Looking at finances, which, you know, it could be like, well, it took 6 months to hire someone for that position, which is unfortunately the norm with a lot of our partners. So we predict you're going to have probably, you know, $40,000 of grant money unspent by the end of the year. Let's work together now to identify ways to spend that and talk to your program officer about how to reallocate those funds to make sure that you don't have those grant overages that can really hamstring a project. So as your grant support services team, we don't stop when the money is raised. Yes, we have a little party. We text each other and we get really excited every time you win, but we also want to say, so from the day you get the letter saying you won to the day the grant starts, what can we do to make it the best possible experience as a grant project manager so that you can successfully achieve everything you're interested in, and also know in advance if you're going in the right direction. And we have the tools and we have the team to support you to do that. All right, I'm going to stop presenting, Brett, and hand it back over to you.
All right, yeah, so that's, we wanted to make sure we saved some time for questions. So I know I've seen some conversation going on in the chat as far as answering questions, but if anyone else has anything we can answer, then now's a good time.
Thank you, guys. Let's see if anyone enters anything into the chat box. Yeah, there is some good conversation in there. I had asked a question about OER, and I think we've got quite a few different sources in there for OER grants. Anybody else? Anything else come up today while you were watching that you want to ask?
I would just add before we change topics that I worked with 5 faculty at my previous institution who won awards. So if connecting SRSU people to any of those individual faculty members would be helpful, I would be very happy to do that.
Thank you. Well, y'all might have really covered it well. I don't see any questions popping up. Let's see. I guess, oh, somebody does have a question. Go ahead, Will, ask your question. And as Will is typing, I think he's typing, I don't see the little dot, but as he's typing, the screen that Brett had just advanced to, I think the contact screen is probably going to be really important, because if you do have questions, these are the people and their contact information.
Yeah, so these are all of our individual email addresses. You can also send an email to grants@solross.edu. Right now that comes to just me, but I'm happy to forward it on to somebody else if you have a question for somebody in particular.
I don't know if our question's going to come through. Okay, Will, if you have a question, type it in there. I'm going to, there we go, for Sarah. For Sarah, what type of project projection templates do you have? Great question.
I will make them for whatever projects that you have running, but on hand, I have some for Title III projects, Title V, ATE, I use innovation, pardon me, I have a couple different ones for NEH. I basically, oh, and for SSS and other TRIO programs. We can make them quarterly or monthly, and we can adjust it to whatever you need for any grant or project that you have. We would just have a meeting where we would talk about your grant, and I would have already read it and have your outcomes, and then I would design it based exactly on your project for you.
Thank you. Okay, as we are just about great. Expect an email from Will Serrano in the future, I think, Sarah. Okay, if there are no other questions, and if there are, you'll have the contact screen there. You can reach right out to Brett, Sarah, Barbara, Julie, or Deb. So thank you all for attending today, and thanks so much to our Ellucian team for this presentation. I think we all learned a lot. I feel like I know you all a whole lot better too. So everyone here today will get a recording of this lecture. It'll probably be next week before you get that link, along with a 3-question survey that you can fill out just to let us know what you thought of today and who you'd like to hear from in the future in the Spotlight series. So I'm happy to announce that our next speaker is going to be Lisa Sousa. She's an assistant professor in the College of Education Professional Studies. She's going to discuss best practices and new tools for online learning. We anticipate a similar format for the next lecture. It's going to be online, so our community near and far can attend with us. So keep an eye out. You'll get an email, you'll see other promotion, and you'll be able to register for that talk soon. So hope you'll have a great Friday, fantastic weekend, and we'll see you next time. Thank you guys so much. This was great.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting for all. So have a great Friday, everyone.